Good morning, everybody. My name is Barry Cowan, and I've been president of the Deerfield Beach Computer Club since 2005. And I want to welcome all of you this morning to our DBCC Zoom meeting. Today is Friday, February 18th, 2022. And I hope you all had a decent 2 weeks. It's been a very interesting 2 weeks, and I'd just like to make a few announcements before we go into today's guest presentation. I had just learned that if you did not take advantage of it yesterday, Amazon has now raised the prices effective yesterday for the Prime membership from $119 to $139. They have also raised their prices for the monthly fee from $12.99 to $14.99. Now, you may argue that that's a lot of money, and it certainly is, but the $20 is really worth it if many of you have been Prime customers. And Amazon said they set records with the amount of numbers of Prime customers. It pays for itself over a short period of time. I'm sure you'll agree with me if you are in that situation. In other information, we have, stand by 1 second, please.
I guess he has to, there we go.
Okay, so can you all hear me all right? Good. All right. Meta is in a big problems with Facebook and everything. Facebook is in the news about their privacy issues and all. And Apple is scheduled to make an announcement on March the 8th, we believe, at 1 p.m. EST in a special Apple event. Rumored is going to be a new iPhone SE with an A15 Bionic chip and 5G. And that little SE, the special edition one, is very small, fits literally in the palm of your hand, and is highly popular. Also, there's an iPad Air with an A series chip also featuring 5G. And there is also a new Mac expected with an Apple design chip. It might just be a Mac Mini. Invitations are expected to go out on March the 1st, if they're going to have it at all. One moment, please. Stand by.
Barry must be having some problems with Beverly.
Amazon, stop. Okay, excuse the interruption. All right. So without further ado, if you don't have any other questions, I don't see any at this point, I'd like to remind you that we have 2 upcoming presentations that are worth your while. 2 weeks from today, I believe, is March 4th, and Judy Talor of the APCUG Speakers Bureau is going to present digital estate planning. And I think everybody needs to know about that. And the following 2 weeks from that, I believe, is March 18th. We will have a presentation from Haley St. John Eyre about the many things you can get off the new and improved Broward County Library site. Another one that you don't want to miss, especially if you have a Broward County Library card. All right, so let me now introduce today's guest speaker, Bill James. He is the APCUG advisor for Region 8, that includes Alabama, Kansas, Louisiana, Tennessee, and Texas. He's a longtime member of the Computer Club of Oklahoma City. He has served 2 terms as president and is currently the vice president of operations. There's so much in his bio that it would take probably the rest of the meeting to complete it. But suffice it to say, he is a member of the Windows 10 Insider Program and gives presentations on new software to his club and is a go-to person on everything Android. He especially does presentations to member groups on Windows 10, home automation, synchronizing devices, and now Chromebooks. And I think between that, he must sleep and eat. But nevertheless, it gives me great pleasure to introduce someone who will give a highly informative presentation. So take it away, Bill.
Thank you, Barry, for that kind introduction. And good morning, everyone. And want to thank you for inviting me to give this presentation. It's going to be somewhat high level, and I'll have you some little nuggets to think about. We have Bob G, who's also a guru in security, so he's here to help me. At least I put him on the spot if I happen to steer off course here. But anyway, we have lots of gadgets these days that is becoming part of our home life. And that includes home automation. And of course, there's always the issue about how secure are these devices and how can I be ensured that they are secure. To begin with, this little graphic here is I found this the Internet of Ransom of Things. And as you know, for the little captions, you see hungry, pay up, I'll unlock your door, on strike until you send money to my hacker, 20 bucks in my PayPal account or I'll boot VCAT. And this is just kind of a funny little cartoon, but in reality, it can raise some eyebrows is that it can be pretty true in a lot of instances. So our agenda here, we're going to talk about what security was between 1999 to 2020, home networks, home automation, hackers, smart TV security, the security in your router, home automation devices and security, consumer reports, and home automation. And I'll have a list of resources. So to begin with, how secure are you? Well, each device should have a secure way of accessing the network. IoT devices being increasingly used for DDoS attacks, which the denial of service is what that means. Malware is infecting a growing number of IoT devices, but their owners may be completely unaware of it. Poor security on many IoT devices makes them soft targets.
Excuse me, I'm hearing some background noises somewhere.
Oh,
I think it's Cooper over there with his toy.
yeah, I'm going to take it
Okay.
away. I'm going to take it away from him. So in 1999, interesting enough, 4% of the world's population was online. That's a very small number compared to today. And the British technology pioneer Kevin Ashton coined the term Internet of Things, which you see abbreviated as IoT. In Business Week, there was a quotation: in the next century, planet Earth will done an electronic skin. It will use the internet as a scaffold to support and transmit its sensations. This skin is...
Oops, I'm still hearing that, Bill.
apologies.
Okay. no
In the
problem.
next century, Planet Earth will don an electronic skin. It will use the internet as a scaffold to support and transmit its sensations. The skin has already been stitched together. It consists of millions of embedded electronic measuring devices, thermostats, pressure gauges, pollution detectors, cameras, microphone, glucose sensors, EKGs, and electroencephalographs. So almost 4 billion of the world's population in 2017 was connected, and an estimated 8.4 billion connected things were in use worldwide. Let's fast forward to 2020. Now there are 31 billion worldwide. Of course, this is 2022. I'm sure that number has increased quite a bit. But there's also the amount of devices actually range into the billions. And it was predicted that in 2021, there would be 35 billion worldwide. And that amount would be a staggering 1.5 billion. And then 2030 is expected that we will jump to 125 devices worldwide, and that the average number of connected devices per household will be about 15. So the 5 biggest cybersecurity trends today is artificial intelligence. You're hearing a lot about AI because it's playing an increasing role in our lives, but it's also can be used for both cyber attacks and defense as well. It's kind of an arms race, but unlike early arms races, anyone can get involved. There's no need for a sort of resources that were previously only available to governments. Political and economic divisions between East and West lead to increased security threats. So in 2019, we saw the US government effectively embargoing partnerships between US tech firms and Chinese electronic companies. And that was due to the fear that there was a link between those companies and the Chinese state. So political interference is becoming increasingly common and increasingly sophisticated. Targeted disinformation campaigns aimed to sway public opinion has almost become an accepted feature of democracy today. Cyber security skills gap continues to grow. And during 2020, research suggested that the number of unfulfilled cybersecurity jobs increased from just 1 million to 3.5 million. Not too many people. Lots of jobs in that arena to try to keep everyone safe. This deficit in skill is likely to become even more of a public concern during the early part of this coming decade. So the threats we face in cyberspace today, from thieves attempting to clone identities, to carry out fraud, to political disinformation campaigns designed to alter the course of democracies, will only become more intense unless there are sufficient people with skills to counter them coming through the pipeline. Vehicle hacking and data theft increases even before we get into the subject of self-driving cars. Vehicles today are basically moving data factories. Pretty sure everybody read in the news about the kid that hacked a Tesla, was able to do a number of things to that car, which was probably a surprise to the manufacturers. But modern cars today are fitted with an array of GPS devices, sensors, and in-car communications and entertainment platforms that make them also a profitable target for hackers and data thieves. So when we talk about home networks, we're generally means meaning a system composed of at least two devices connected to each other. And usually these devices are connected to the internet. Technically, if you only have one device connected, it's still part of a larger network. So most home routers today, most homes networks today have the foundation of their internet as a router. It could be a standalone, or it also could be a combo. The example here is a D-Link, and it's a standalone router. It's a gigabyte router. And then the devices that could be possibly connected to that and could be compromised because they're on the internet is your security system, your smart doorbell, video camera, washer, dryer, smart TV, smart light bulbs. So what can a hacker do? Well, some of these devices can be vulnerable, that they will allow individuals to be able to break into your house, allow you to see if anyone's at home by looking at your video feed. And smart outlets and thermostats could possibly provide a temporary access to your Wi-Fi network, as well as get remote access. So routers, security cameras, health and fitness apps, cars that are sold with vulnerabilities are all open to attack. Most of these rely on an email username and password to access the app, and the Wi-Fi network name and passwords in the setup process. I think many of you, if you ever set up any device lately, it usually will ask for those two pieces of information. So the incidents that that illustrate the need for consumer is for us to be better educated and more vigilant when it comes to our digital security. You also have to watch that a lot of IoT devices do not come with many security features. So cyber criminals are not always trying to steal personal and banking information. Sometimes they just want to create havoc. They can use IoT gadgets to direct services or shut down websites. As we talked about earlier, the DDoS, distributed denial of services attack, occur when servers are overwhelmed with more traffic than they can handle. And that's a deliberate attempt to disrupt, is that you just flood the server with a lot of garbage and it causes it to crash. In 2014, we had the first cyber attack used about on home routers and multimedia devices. About 25% of those devices hacked were home appliances. There were 750,000 malicious emails that were sent out. And instead of a couple of computers being taken over without your knowledge, a botnet can be used to attack internet connected devices. They can control these and perform large scale hacks or scams, so that your smart washer and dryer, TV, or whatever can be infected with malware that was created through a botnet. It's easy to talk about Internet of Things security issues in theory, but what actually happens when an IoT device gets hacked? We need to understand exactly what happens. How they get hacked is crucial in helping to protect us. Knowledge, of course, isn't a cast iron guarantee that that we won't be hacked, but it certainly puts you in a position where you understand and know what needs to be done. So we're going to take a look at 4 real life examples And these are just food for thought. I mean, these happened in the past, but it's just a kind of an idea of what can go wrong. So one of the things was that Verizon had a data breach back in 2017, and they gave a example of an unnamed university where the network was flooded with the name requests for seafood restaurants. It sounded like it was a student prank, but it was an outside attack by hackers that used 5,000 IoT devices such as vending machines and lighting systems. And that hack was achieved through a brute force attack that took advantage of the weakest passwords, so malware could be deployed and bring the university's network to a standstill. So this is a good example of a denial of service. There's also a story about an IoT cameras being hacked. It was a popular camera at the time, was called NeoCool Cam, and it was found to contain a major security flaw, which meant that they could be easily hacked from outside the network that they were on. Given the security natures of those devices, they could easily be compromised for unauthorized surveillance or even a stepping stone to get deeper into the network. So the researchers at Bitfinder found that all it takes is for an easily accessible login screen that can be manipulated in order to take control of any of the cameras that were currently in use. And then there was another one which was rather famous, was the Mirai botnet, and it was due to poor password management. So a piece of malware which infected the network devices that were running on Linux instructed these devices to constantly search the internet for vulnerable IoT devices. The fatal flaw contained within the devices is that their factory set default username and password had not been changed. So the botnet was loaded with a list of those default details, which made it able to quickly take control of those devices. And another one that's interesting, another vehicle was the hacking of a Jeep. And what happened in this case was the security researchers, Charlie Miller and Chris Valasek, were able to identify a zero-day exploit, which allowed them to send instructions to the vehicle through their infotainment system. Not only did this provide them with the opportunity to remotely change the car's temperature, but also influence the vehicle's steering and braking systems. So all that was required in this instance was the vehicle's IP address to take control. Now, those are kind of disturbing examples, but they can occur. So what companies have done to counter those, they have released new firmware to patch those holes, and they've updated with new patches. So the lesson here is that when you get an update to any of your devices, don't just ignore them. Go ahead. I know it takes time out of your day. Go ahead and do the updates, because those are crucial to your security. Because a lot of things that you may not know about have been identified by others, and so the companies have taken measures to provide you with the latest firmware and updates to your devices. Smart TVs, they need to be secure as much as your computer systems. There's no antivirus for TVs, of course, but hackers can get control of the webcam and spy on whatever you're doing in your living room or bedroom. Voyeuristic, or just when you're out of the house, could be a potential burglary. So most cameras or devices, they have a privacy curtain or shield on them. And if they don't, you might try using a Post-it note over your webcam. And there's not more than a depressing slogan, which I hear a lot, is that privacy is dead, get over it. But if it's not, then billions upon billions of chips and sensors that are contained in these devices will definitely seal that deal. Most IoT devices require location services to be turned on and functional, and they're usually, these devices are also in listening modes 24/7. So it's more than just about internet connected refrigerators, but it also represents a move to have even more objects networked and embedded. So when you're setting your devices up, think about a couple things. Remember that when you read the list of things that are included in the terms of service, those are in a lot of cases just cookie cutter messages. So you need to read them carefully. There's a lot of fine print, I realize, but some of the things that you need to think about is that is location services particularly needed for this particular device that I'm installing. And you go through the menu items as you're setting it up, and you can make choices. So just take time to, when you're setting those up, to carefully read those and then make the decisions as you go along. Don't be in too big of a rush to get things installed. Just take it step by step. Some of the precautions that you need to be aware of is that using the same password for a shopping site account and the site is breached, know that your login information could end up in the wrong hands. People with access security can cause all kinds of issues. So one of the things to do is that you can enable two-step verification. You can choose stronger passwords. You can check whether or not your email address and password has been breached using this website, haveibeenpawned.com /passwords. Have I been pawned, and that's P, there's no A in it, it's pwned.com /passwords. You need to be alert, watch for phishing emails, and those are coming out leaps and bounds. I received one just this week about a lady wanting to, which I didn't recognize, and looked like a completely innocent email that was asking about if I had an Amazon account and could I purchase a gift card. So if you don't recognize the person that's sending the email, just delete it. And don't fall for scams that says that if you don't do this in a certain amount of days, your account will be closed or whatever they're threatening to do. Just ignore those. Don't even give them the waste the time of day, in my opinion, to even read them. Just put them in your trash. Because if it's that important, they will find some other way to contact you. And in most cases, if you didn't request the information, that is bogus, in my opinion. If you have the capability of setting up a guest network on your Wi-Fi router, I would encourage you to do so. When people visit your home, you can give them that password and user ID to get on the internet if they need to. So each device should have a secure way of accessing the network. And as I said earlier, you want to disable any unrequired features or services. Malware is infesting a growing number of IoT devices, but you may not be aware of that because of the poor security of some of these, like there's no password in the light bulbs, for instance. They can become soft targets. One of the key things that you have to keep in mind is your router. Because most of the, any IoT device that's on the internet is going to go either through your Wi-Fi or your wired connection on your router. So a router has a couple things that it needs to do. First, it needs to ensure that information doesn't go where it's not needed, and make sure information is securely arrives at the intended destination. And it also wraps data in a secure envelope, which we call encryption, in its outbound traffic. So one of the things you want to do is change the router name. Don't use anything that identifies you. Set up a guest network with its own SSID and password. And on that particular one, you can change the password frequently. You may not want to do it on your main network because of the devices that you have connected, but on the guest one, at least do that. Don't give them any access to shared files or network devices. And usually the guest network will preclude a lot of that information from being a part of that particular network. And you want to activate WPA2 personal. It may show up as WPA2 peak SK. There's a newer standard that's coming out, that's WPA3, that you'll be seeing more of. But right now, there's a lot of devices that do not support that. So be careful when you invoke, you'll see it on your newer routers that WPA3 is available, but make sure that your devices are compatible and will work on that standard. And then you want to activate your router firewall. And you want to have a good security program in place by just making a checklist of some of the things I just told you about, and just take a look at all your devices you have connected and see how they're connected and what it takes to access them. If you have a technician that comes in, they might ask for your password, or so you can go ahead and do it. If you feel the need, you can change it after the repair is made. And then get a new cable modem. I think today there's the modems are currently usually DLCIS 3.0 or 3.1. And if you have a modem that is older than that, it possibly doesn't have that new standard. So I would suggest that you contact your, say for instance, if you had cable in your home for a number of years and it has not, the modem has not been changed out, you're still using the same old one, you might want to contact the cable company and see if they will come out and send you a updated one. I think a lot of cable companies are doing that on their own because a lot of their network will not work unless it is a 3.0 or 3.2 DLCIS. So just keep that in mind. And of course, you'll want to change the password if there's one required. Set up two-factor authentication on your devices if it's available. Which what will happen, of course, will that you'll get either a text message or a phone call when you attempt to sign on with a new device. So it doesn't always. In some cases, it's just a one-time procedure, and other times it might have to. You might have to do it each time you log in, but you can be judge of that and set up two-factor authentication if you feel the need to do so. Make sure you have all your automatic updates on your devices, including your router, so it will get the latest firmware updates. One of the things that automatic updates will shorten the time that's for unpatched security flaws, and you can and again, as I said earlier, think twice about your location data. Now, what I mean by this, if you have a device that use something called geofencing, in other words, you have that when you become like you have that turned on your phone, as you come into that area, it causes the lights to come on, or it will open the garage door or do those certain things. Then you may want to have location data turned on so that function will work. But you feel that you don't want that to happen and have no need for it, then on that particular device, you could turn the location data off. And of course, lastly, using a VPN or a virtual private network. Bob probably can talk more about that in our Q&A, because there are some caveats associated with using a VPN. So here's a company that's been recommended by Groovy Post. It's called a private internet access. It's $40 a year. So what we're talking about, while the client software is quite Spartan, the minimalist design makes it easy for a non-technical person to use, which still allows technophiles to access the inner workings under the Advanced tab. This is the PIA software. So it has some recommendations as something you might want to consider. So here's a little checklist for automation. Number one, research capabilities and security features of your IoT device before you buy it. You'll want to keep your router up to date or replace with a newer model. You want to use strong passwords for your Wi-Fi network, strong encryption such as WPA on your router. You want to disable any unrequired features and services that might be built into those devices. You want to disable or protect remote access to them when it's not needed. Use wired connects when it's possible, and then maintain an up-to-date antivirus software. And then lastly, regularly check the manufacturer's website for any firmware or software updates for that device. Because all the time, some of them do not have automatic updates, but if you go to the manufacturer's website, you might find that there is they've issued an update or a patch. And then make sure you read that it's applicable to the device that you have. So when we're talking about passwords, Bill Burr wrote that password wrote the Password Bible in 2003. He worked for the US government, and he now admits that he was wrong about how he described passwords, because on guidelines that were using numbers, symbols, and capital letters that made computers easier to hack. His advice was to push users toward a lazy and easy to predict practice. But they now believe that long passwords that contain a minimum of 4 words are much harder to break than shorter ones with mixed letters, characters, and numbers. So 550 years to correct horse battery staple, as opposed to taking 3 days to crack trouble for door and 3. And what they've done here is, you notice they just substituted letters and numbers for actual alphabetical word for the word. So Ed Snowden agrees, and he recommends using passphrases to be more secure. In other words, correct horse battery staple would be a passphrase as opposed to what we're talking about here, the trouble door and 3. Consumer Reports has partnered with cyber experts, and they said creating a new open source industry standard to make connected devices safer. This study, Privacy Front and Center, meets the commercial opportunity to support consumer rights from their laboratory, which supports the Omadar network. And it's looking at the commercial benefits for companies to differentiate their products based on privacy and data security. So in other words, consumers shouldn't have to constantly play defense when the products aren't engineered with the basic privacy and security protections built in. The study also showed that the rising standard for privacy and security is a win-win for both consumers and companies. Given the rapid proliferation of internet-connected devices, the rise of data breaches and cyber attacks, and the demand from consumers for heightened privacy and security measures, there's an undeniable business case for companies to invest in creating a more private and secure product. So here's some key factors from that study. One, that in 2020, it actually, there were 74% consumers, or at least moderately concerned about their privacy. Nearly all Americans agree that there should be more done to ensure that companies protect the privacy of consumers. And there were 60% of individuals worried about the potential loss of privacy when they're buying a product for their home. And there was at least 30% of Americans have experienced at least one data breach. So some of the resources that we have is set up and optimize your wireless router. That's from PC Magazine, Consumer Reports, and the 5 bigger cybersecurity trends in 2020 everyone should know about. The Internet of Things, connectivity, binge, use a sentence instead of a complicated password. And then there's, that is that presentation. And we'll open it up for any questions that anyone might have, where we can kind of dive into the topic more in depth. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen.
Okay, let's give Bill a great hand, a virtual hand for an excellent job, very comprehensive, very informative. I warned you, if you weren't careful, you might learn something. Okay, who has a question? Raise your hand, please. Yes, Dorothy.
I have Comcast and they furnish the modem. Do I call Comcast and see if they have an updated router modem?
Yes, that would be a good idea. How long do you think it's been in service at your home?
About 4 or 5 years.
Okay. You know, I would think that you probably need to check with them to see if there's a latest, an updated version that they can come out.
Okay,
That I personally have purchased my own modem and router. That's something that you can do if you want to get rid of the rental fee if they're
no,
charging.
ours was not a rental, and we had a contract at our complex. And
Okay.
it furnished the modem and router, and I could probably take this in and exchange it. I don't think they'll come out, but if I tell them that I'm having problem, they'll probably give me a new router, new
Right.
modem.
And a lot, and be careful because some of them also, but I guess if it's a refurbished one, it should be brought up to current standards. But the thing that you want to look for in a modem is that this current standard is DOCIS. I want to make sure I get
Bill, it's
DOCSIS.
DOCSIS,
SIS and it's
3.1.
3.1. Thank you, Barry. That's the standard for your modem.
3.1,
Yeah,
okay,
yes,
I'll check it. Thank you.
good question.
Yeah, we just did the same thing. Rosalind had the same thing. She'd had her modem for a couple of years, called up Comcast, and you can just take the old one in, drop it off, they'll give you a new one, and you can plug it right back in again. So.
Okay, yeah, that's what I thought, yeah.
Absolutely.
That's
And
another,
Question for passwords too, that I learned a new way to, because I can never remember all of mine either. But I found one, I think maybe Barry had it earlier, but it's take your favorite song and the first letter of all of the words of the song, and you put that in as your password with a number or a special symbol. That way you can remember the song, the first letters, and it's harder to crack, like the longer words are.
right.
How about these password managers? Are they effective?
Well, the password manager is only a repository for your passwords, unless it has a capability of generating new ones. That's the only purpose of having a password manager, is that you have all your passwords put in this vault, and then it's accessible by a master password. So you don't have to put in the password for each site. You just use that one. When you bring it up, the password manager goes in and fills in the blanks, but that doesn't change the password.
But if you forget that master password, you're out of luck.
Right, you are,
Pretty much.
pretty much. But I think the idea behind having not using random characters and letters is because if you can use a program to spin through all those digits and eventually come up with the password, whereas if you have a passphrase, it becomes more difficult.
Yeah, Bill,
Yes,
I was wondering about the equipment that hackers actually need to be able to access your systems.
well, it's pretty sophisticated from my understanding. I think that's a Bob G question, but they have all kinds of sophisticated devices and programs that they can go in and find information on your passwords. But you have to take this in consideration that, you know, we're just kind of a little fish in a big pond. And it's not always, we're not always the target of these hacks, but sometimes we're inadvertently affected because of someone else's carelessness.
Right.
Great, thank you.
Also want to mention to everyone, VPNs do not prevent ransomware attacks and cyber attacks. What they're doing is just diverting your location from your home to another area all over the world. So technically, you're just, traveling to a different place, but that doesn't mean, that you're isolated. Is that correct from what I understand, Bill?
That's my understanding too. And what I said about the caveat is that if you use a VPN, you might run into issues with your bank and some other activities and organization that rely on where you're actually located. So if you use a VPN to access that particular website, and it says you're in London and they know that you're in Florida, then it's going to send up a flag and you'll be denied access. So you have to be use the VPN with some carefully.
Larry, you have your hand raised?
Yeah, it was a different question that I'll get to. But regarding the VPN, not only does it disguise your location, it also encrypts the data that you transmit. So in other words, your internet service provider can't read what that data is that you're transmitting.
It's not logged.
That depends on the service you use. Most free services do logging. The paid for better services do no logging. And that's another important aspect of the VPN. In fact, right now I'm doing a little research into changing my VPN from PIA, private internet access, to maybe Nord or a different service.
All right.
What I'm not happy about, no, I use a location in Atlanta as my home. Okay, but Amazon has taken to not responding to any of the US destinations in PIA, and they haven't responded to me in over a week when I've complained about it. If I change my location to a offshore, in other words, non-US location, I can access Amazon through the VPN without a problem.
Larry, what happens to
Hold it, somebody's, go ahead.
what happens to your deliveries?
To my deliveries, they know where I'm located. They have me on file.
Okay.
You know,
Even though
I
you're-
use a European, and they have cookies, you know, that tell them about you. I also had no problem accessing my bank when I used an offshore location. So there are ways of working with the VPN, but my issue
Okay.
with PIA is their responsiveness to the Amazon issue.
Thank you, Larry. Let's hear from Lorraine
The
now.
question that I had, though,
Hold
that
on.
I raised my hand for, okay, was, do you have any specific suggestions for securing smart TVs?
No, I do not. Some of the things that were in the earlier models, like they've removed the cameras and things from those devices, but TVs are, you know, they're the smart TVs particularly are just like computers in many regards, but there's no antivirus or malware that I'm aware that you can install on the device. But a lot of the TVs now do have security built into them. If you look at the specifications, you'll find that there will be a acknowledgement of what they're using to keep the device secure.
Okay, Lorraine, what do you have to say, dear?
Well, just a few items. The first one is in terms of security in your car, because as we know, most new cars, they all have a computer on board and they have a navigator or GPS. And a lot of us, we use our GPS sometimes just to go home. And so the first thing we do is we put into the GPS all the important addresses. So one of the things that I was advised not to do is to put my home address on my car navigator or GPS. So what I did is, example, I live in Cypress Bend. And so I put an address that is in Palmer. Palmer is huge. So if somebody does get into my Navigator GPS and they do get access to the home address, then it won't be home and they will never find my car in Palmer. So, so that's an advice for your own security, because hackers, once they get into your car, you're at the theater, so they know you're not home. So what they do is they get into your GPS and they communicate to a friend, and that friend goes to your house and can steal or whatever. So that's one of the things on security that I've learned a long time ago to do. The second thing is webcam. I think that's a very important point that you brought in. All of our devices now, they have webcams. So our privacy is kind of gone with the wind. And especially, you know, on iPhones where, I mean, your phone is all over, it's following you. So whether you're in the bathroom or wherever you are, there are some webcam covers that are really, they're tiny, tiny. They don't even really show. And they're inexpensive. You can look them on Amazon. And I bought that for my iPhone, for my iPad, for my laptops. As I say, they're tiny, tiny, so you don't really see them. And right now on my iPad, I just slide a little door in front of my camera and you see me. And if I don't want you to see me, I slide it down. So the camera is off. So I think that's another very important point that you brought in, to be careful about our cameras on our devices. The other point is more a question. I did not catch the modem standard that you mentioned that we have to look for on our modem.
It's DOCIS 3,
DOCSIS, Bill.
DOCSIS 3.
DOCSIS. Thank you.
DOCSIS 3.1.
They're all DOCSIS, it's just the level
Yes.
So it's,
on the DOCSIS that's important.
so it's DOCSSIS 3.1?
It's
One S.
DOCSIS
Oh, thank you.
3.1.
Thank you. Thank you. Those were the, yes.
Barry put them up in the chat. So if you go over to the chat, you can see it, which was very helpful for me to see
Right.
something written.
Yeah, my pronunciation is, and I'm sorry I garbaged that up. Steve wrote something interesting about, that to emphasize what Lorraine said about your GPS in your car or your infotainment navigation system. His home location is the McDonald's up the street.
I like
Mhm.
that. That's a very good idea.
You can use another address rather than your home, which reminds me, I'm glad you pointed it out, because when I do home, my address is in my infotainment system. It'll take me there because I'll say go home and it takes me. So all I really need is to have something in the location, not the actual address.
Because in reality, you know, let's assume you're in Miami or wherever you are, and you don't really know how to get out of where you are to get home. Well, in reality, once you're, example for me, once I'm, you know, in my area, I'm around Palmer, I know that that's not where I live. I know how to get home.
Exactly.
So you don't need your exact address on your, but I like the idea of McDonald's. This is absolutely phenomenal. I like it.
Well, this parallels the idea like where you have package thieves, okay? You don't want your package, porch thieves are very, very active, especially during the holidays and whatever. And the best way to do that is if you have an Amazon package, have it sent to a neighbor or to an Amazon locker. For example, in Whole Foods, you can have it sent there, and then when you come in, you get a code that's only good for you, and that verifies it. You can open your locker and take your package, you know, and then what happens to it is up to you. But that's just another way of scamming the scammers. Fool them.
Also, some of the new cameras that you for your video doorbells, they have a feature that will identify package delivery. And so they actually take a picture of the individual that approaches with a box or one that takes a box away. So you can have some a degree of security in that manner because of the activities that you can find on the camera.
Yeah. I've got the-
Okay, Bob, you have your hand raised, and then Don. Go ahead, Bob.
I think Don was up way before me.
Okay, go ahead, Don. I'm sorry.
Yeah, three things. Yeah, I do have the Ring, and it runs like a 30-second blurb when it comes up to my door. So I've got those recordings really quickly to do with. Second, with the VPNs, Cheryl Freeman and I both have something called IP Vanish. We both like it a lot. It works really, really well. Thirdly, I had a Norton Core, which was the router that Norton put out that the internet came into it and then went out to everything in the house and got filtered through the core. Now it's too slow for me to use in the full house now, but I use that core now over on my entertainment devices so that I run the internet through the core before it goes then to the TV, the smart TV or wherever that is.
Mhm.
And that gives me security then on the entertainment systems.
Great. I use Ivacy, IVACY, and I've recommended it to several members here who also took it, and then I got extra credit, of course, towards my subscription. But it's been an excellent program for me. You get it on 5 devices or something. So it works on your iPad, your iPhone, your Android. There's something for everyone in it. IVACY.com. And of course, Bob will tell you Avast has an excellent one too, Avast Secure VPN, or is that right, Bob?
The product that they had that took care of your IoT devices is no longer available to the general public, unfortunately. I was part of their beta testing and I had it. I no longer use it because it's no longer being supported. For my GPS, my home address is the police station.
Barry, do you, with your VPN, I had one and I discontinued it because I had problems whenever I was accessing my bank. With your VPN that you're mentioning, do you have those issues or? I mean,
No. Well,
You don't.
it can be. For example, if you have it set to Germany and they think that you're in Germany, your bank may not allow it in the United States. But you can unblock that and make the bank think that you're in the United States and making a transaction to Germany rather than from Germany. That's what the VPN can do in some existence. I haven't had a problem with it. I use it with my Bank of America. I have no problem accessing any place else. It's very effective, but that is a caveat that could occur.
and what is the cost of your VPN?
I think I paid, this is a renewed subscription. I have to check it out. I'll have to get back to you on that.
Okay.
It's very inexpensive, and if you can use up to 5 devices on it, and the tech support is outstanding. It comes out of Singapore.
Oh,
Hmm.
okay.
Sorry, Barry.
Yep,
Sorry, Barry.
I know.
I wouldn't have anything that comes out of China, not when it comes to security.
Well, I've had no problem, but yeah, that is an issue. Mhm.
Barry, which VPN do you use?
Ivacy, IVACY. You can go to ivacy.com and check out everything there.
And no logging?
Yes, you will have a login that you have to come up with.
No, logging.
Oh, no
Of course,
logging.
yeah.
No logging.
And I think Steve put another one he's using in the chat box. I think there's kind of a mix signals on VPNs, but some people are successful with them and others are not. So I don't use one personally, but
Oh, Mike says Singapore is not China.
Okay,
Correct. Okay, so
Well-
let's focus now on gadgets. How many people have gadgets that, a lot of them have, how many of you have Amazon devices? Okay, are you concerned about the privacy of your Amazon devices or your TVs, your LG TVs or whatever, spying on you?
Hello? Hello? Ah,
The one that, Amazon had, I guess it's their Ring, and some other devices that what they were calling neighborhood. I can't remember what it was exactly called, but where they were all communicating with one another. That was something you could opt out of. Bob, do you remember more about that? It was the,
yeah, it was neighborhood is what it was called. And it's designed to increase the distance at which it can communicate. Again,
So-
if you're that concerned about privacy, then don't go on the internet. Any
Right,
place you go, anything you do, you are being tracked. And if you're really, really that concerned, I'm sorry, it's too late. It's
as
too
I
late.
said earlier, privacy is essentially dead.
right.
That's correct. Especially for those of us that have been on the internet since it first started, because back then you didn't have any of the cautions. All your information is out there. You can't go back now and say, well, give it all back to me. It doesn't work that way. You can't retract anything you've ever put out on the internet because somebody's already backed it up. And even if you get rid of it from its original place, the backups are all there. So, the
Somewhere.
the only way to prevent it from getting out is not to put it out there in the first place.
Good idea. Anybody else before we start to go?
Lorraine
towards
has
the
her hand
finish?
up.
Lorraine, go ahead.
Yes, you were asking about gadgets, and I just bought this. I just got the box yesterday. It's a pulse oximeter. I don't know if you can see it from the camera. No,
What is it
Quality-
called?
Not with a background, no.
no.
You
What
gotta
is it
move it back further a little bit. There you go. That's better, but it's still,
Okay. Now what this does, supposedly, I haven't tried it yet. I got the box yesterday. But I'm having some breathing problem. And I get short of breath for just sitting down. And so I had a breathing test and it came out normal. So we're trying to qualify what the problem is. And my pulse, anyways, long history. But the bottom line is I bought this new gadget, which is going to measure, when you go to the doctor and they measure your pulse. And
your oxygen saturation level, O2. Mhm.
correct. So what this does is it measures this, the same thing as the doctor. It's a little device that you put on your finger, but it has Bluetooth on it. So it does a history on your iOS or Android device. So it
Mm.
keeps track of it, which is very nice because now maybe I'll try to identify what activity, what happens, why. And so I just bought it. And the other thing which is nice is the history that it creates on your device, your iOS or your Android device, can be sent to your doctor. So interesting gadget that I will try.
Okay.
Well, that's great. All right, folks. It's been a real pleasure again. I hope you've got
Lorraine, would
a,
you put that in the chat box, please?
yeah, go ahead, put that
Okay.
in the chat. Any other questions? Bob, Bill, I want to thank you so much for an excellent presentation.
You're very welcome,
And
Barry.
being,
Thank you so much.
we've had a number of conversations about automation and everything. We're all automation freaks. I'm sure, Don, you and Bill might benefit from exchanging some information.
Always paying attention, Barry, always paying attention.
Okay. So if there are no further questions or comments, I want to wish everybody a happy and healthy 2 weeks coming up. in which time Judy Talor, who is really one of the spark plugs of the APCUG, Association of Personal Computer User Groups, the national organization to which we belong, will be presenting digital estate planning. And if you don't think that's an important topic, I hope you're never found out to be dead wrong.
Oh, don't
So-
forget to save your chat.
That's right. We'll save the chat and so say goodbye, everyone.
Bye-bye, and thank you so much. It was my
Bye. Have a nice
Goodbye.
weekend.
Everybody have a
Bye-bye.
nice,
Bye-bye.
nice
Be well.
weekend. Good 2 weeks.
See you soon.